ran for governor. I had to take on another role of some type of importance. Maybe I had to feel important, so I ran for governor for a year and a half, and I lost.
Yeah.
Had a good time, learned a lot, but so a lot's happened over the last couple of years, and that's probably a little over a year and a few months ago that we did the last podcast, and then before that, I did a couple because I did start running for governor, and before that. As you know, I lost my wife Cheryl. That was almost 2 years ago now. It'd be Halloween 2 years ago. So that was a tough time in my life, and I wasn't doing a lot of podcasts while in those last months of her life either. So we're back on. We're going after it. After the loss of Cheryl, I was really looking at my businesses and should I go back to being the chair and CEO of all my companies again? And working with my partners to grow, or should I do something else? And gosh, you know what? The coolest thing happened. I realized my son Austin, my daughter Janelle, and all our leaders in our businesses were kicking ass, doing great things. And I had to scratch my head and say, maybe it's a message to get the heck out of their way. And that's the way I took it anyway. And so after really evaluating where all the businesses are at, I decided a few months later to put my hat in the ring to run for governor of Illinois. And it was a great experience. I learned a lot, met a lot of amazing people. I believe that our state of Illinois, as well as the country, has our problems. And the only way you fix things is you jump in and get in the game, right? Jump in the arena. Don't stand on the sidelines and bitch and moan, right? So that's what I did. So for almost a year and 8 months, I was in that race, and had a lot of interesting situations happen there, and it was quite a trail,
Yeah, and it was really incredible watching you on the campaign trail. Just I think you're a naturally kind of gregarious, outgoing person, and you seemed, in my opinion, to take to it like a fish to water. And though you quote unquote lost, I mean, the amount of votes and the energy and passion you got behind you, I think, is an incredible accomplishment.
Some people said a couple of people evaluated the race, said I had the most votes per money spent, for money invested in my race, which is a good thing, right? But in that race, I realized I wasn't going to raise money from a lot of billionaires. The 4 or 5 billionaires that got into the race to invest in the race didn't get behind me, and my messaging turned them off. I think my messaging was basically I have common sense, and I can't be bought. And can't be bought was a message that I learned later on. Probably not the best if you want billionaires to buy into your race, because they might want to make sure that you do things their way, right? And again, I'm probably never going to be that guy. So if I ever run again, I'm going to have to raise more of my own money. I got about $5 million in that race. A few million of that was mine. A couple million were my friends who helped me, which was awesome. But I didn't get money from the biggest, wealthiest people in the world or in the state of Illinois. But I had investors that believed in me. And I had a lot of small investors that believed in me. I had a lot of volunteers that believed in me. So it was really pretty cool. In the end, right, this race was, people may or may not know this, but this Illinois primary, Republican primary, was the most expensive primary in the history of America. So my 5 million in other states, let's say like Michigan or other states like our size, Pennsylvania, Michigan, would actually have been pretty good amount of money that could compete. But unfortunately in Illinois, the TV time was bought up by bigger money. And initially, myself and the few candidates we're in didn't have that big money behind us. I was right there neck and neck with another guy, and then the big money came in. As you may know, Ken Griffin supported a Democrat in the race that ran. He was a mayor of one of our towns here, Aurora, a Democrat that voted 7 of the last 8 primaries as a Democrat. Ken Griffin put $55 million behind him. Now, I didn't believe I believe he'd be an easy candidate no matter how much money they put behind him, because he was a fake. He was not. I mean, and the guy maybe isn't actually, after getting to know the guy a little bit on the outside, he's probably not really a total fake, but he listened to his consultants who made him a fake. If the guy would have said that he was a Democrat and he had this epiphany where he changed, all of a sudden he changed, now he wants to be a Republican, and he had a story behind that, he probably would have won, in my opinion, because people probably would have believed that, right? Unfortunately, I don't think he ever had that epiphany. I think he ran. They knew he was a Democrat and he was going to be a Democrat as a Republican. As a veteran, they thought that those two things would probably carry him over the finish line. And we had a couple of debates where I really got on him heavy. I basically said a lot of things, and very, very blunt and very factual things I said about him. As he bragged that he was, going to fight crime in his own town of Aurora. He did a terrible job fighting crime. And he said he's going to fight taxes. In his own town of Aurora, they were the second highest property tax state or city in America in 2021. So either way, the guy, again, I don't think he's a bad guy. I just think he's a Democrat. And so I pointed out in the last debate, I finished one of the debates saying, if you want a Democrat as your Republican, representative for governor, there has never been a better Democrat in the history of our country to run in a Republican primary than this guy. He's a pure Democrat. So if that's what you want, he's the guy. Vote for him, right? And people got a kick out of it. But, it's just a matter of being blunt and honest. And I had kind of a lot of fun with that. Another guy, Darren Bailey, who's the one who won, nice guy. I'm supporting him every way I can right now. I've spoke for him, raised money for him. I've done everything I can for Darren as he won. Darren had a billionaire Uline that got behind him for 10, 12 million bucks and raised a couple $1 million otherwise. And then Pritzker picked him out as the most likely candidate that he could beat. In the polls, it showed that I was the number one, would be the number one toughest candidate for Pritzker to beat, and showed Darren Bailey as the least likely to be able to beat him, right? Darren's got an accent. He's from Southern Illinois, right? Chicagoland area has a hard time voting for somebody with a heavy Southern accent, I think is what they believed. But anyway, so Darren ended up getting Pritzker. Okay, so it's happened over the course of history where a Democrat has supported a Republican, or a Republican has supported a Democrat to get the weakest candidate across the finish line. Okay, but it's never been for more than a few $100,000, maybe $1 million. Pritzker put $35 million into this race to get Bailey to be the winner. Okay, $35 million, and he did it through putting the money in the Democratic Governors Association. So all the ads came from the Democratic Governors Association in Illinois, saying that Illinois is Darren Bailey is too conservative for Illinois, and it would say Darren Bailey is too pro-life, he's too pro-gun, he's too conservative for Illinois, for Illinois. And so what did that do? Of course, any Republicans, looking at the primary would say, oh my gosh, that's our guy. You got the Democrats, the Democratic Governors Association saying that this guy is too conservative. Of course he's our guy. And those ads went on over and over again. And they also spent money attacking Richard Irvin when Irvin was ahead, attacking him to knock him down so Darren Bailey could then take over. And so sure enough, Darren won the race. There's another guy that was in the race that had 15 or 20 million in. And so my $5 million was very little in comparison. And you really do have to get a lot of TV ads, in my opinion, especially if you're not, I'm well known in paving, well known in working for real estate companies, but I'm not well known in politics. So the lack of TV commercials definitely was a big deficit for me. I ended up getting to about 75% name recognition for Republicans across Illinois. And these guys got to 95%, right? So that 20% deficit's too much. So in the long run, again, I learned a lot, and I may or may not, go after it again. We'll see. But I'm pretty excited. I mean, I think God has a plan, and that wasn't the plan for me right now. That wasn't His plan for me right now. And after I lost, it took me about 10 minutes to get over it, and then I was back on my way. And I again been supporting Darren a bunch, but also back in my businesses, not operationally, and not even a CEO, really just kind of evaluating where we're investing, where we're spending our money, and where we're what we're doing to serve our customers better. And my team leaders my CEOs and leaders of our companies are doing amazing. Our businesses over that year and a half grew more than any year and a half in my lifetime. Right, our business value, we go by enterprise value. We measure the value of our businesses and how we're doing. We measure the enterprise value of each business, and the enterprise value of our businesses have ever gone up as much. And I'm not saying like, oh, they went up 10 or 20% more than any other 18-month period. They went up like a few 100% in some of my businesses, right? And it wasn't because of the race. Actually, in the race, I actually had some cancel culture, had to pay for, and stuff like that you would expect as a conservative in Chicagoland area running. But across the country, our customers demanded more of our services. And we're in a position today to grow like never before, much due to the leadership of our sales leaders who are doing a great job taking care of our customers. I got a guy, Mike Domino, one of my partners, that took over leading our sales force, where I was kind of the guy leading our sales force before. Part-time was me, mentoring our sales leaders. Well, Mike Domino has done an amazing job, better than I could ever expect anybody to do. And our sales team is performing at a level like never before. My son Austin oversees all our companies. Austin was on this podcast early on. We'll have to get him on again because he was on as he was leading our company Site. Well, Site was we found another CEO to lead Site when I went home to be with my wife for the last year of her life. I stepped out of this role of CEO of my companies, leading all my companies, and Austin stepped in. But he left a void at Site, our technology company. And I tell you what, we looked for about 8 months and found an amazing person to fill that role for Austin. And Dan Duffy was actually a great leader in government. He was a technology CEO that eventually sold out of his company and then ran as a state senator, as a statesman. The same exact thing that I want to be as a governor of our state. I want to be a statesman, somebody that goes to work, does that job, does a great job, and then gets out within a term or two, goes back to business. Dan did that exact same thing, and I really respected that back, 10 years ago. I would say it's probably 16 years ago to 8 years ago. Did 2 terms, and then went back to business. Well, Dan was out there looking for the next opportunity. We hired him as a CEO of Site, and Site has grown somewhere in the neighborhood of 600% to 1,000% in that 18-month period. Partially due to him and Austin more than anything else. The leadership of Austin, my son, and Dan has been incredible, and they've taken that business to a whole other world. And it's really cool. It's a really cool technology company that we're leading the industry worldwide in that business. So that's exciting as can be, right? My daughter Janelle, who I never expected to be a CEO and an entrepreneur and a leader, because she's mild-mannered, she's super compassionate. She wouldn't yell at anybody if you paid her to, right? She really loves people and just doesn't want to hurt anybody's feelings, right? Never thought this girl could lead anything. Well, she took on Rabine Paving America, our national company, and she's grown this company like never before. And she's doing it with just compassionate leadership, working her butt off. I mean, she leads by example, and people are following her. People that are older, much older than her, people that are her age or younger, but most people that have been around the business longer than her are respecting her as a leader like isn't common. Okay, it's not common to come into a business. She's been around these businesses for 7-8 years. Okay, but to come in and lead a national paving company, not an easy task for anybody, and she's making it look easy. So that's really cool. Our other businesses, we've got 13 companies all together, and I got to tell you, every CEO, every president, every leader we have is kicking butt, like I've never imagined. So again, I got to stay the heck out of their way. I just got to help where I can when it comes to maybe the bigger negotiations that I'm part of. Maybe where we invest in new markets. By the way, in that same period of time, over 2 years, just 2 years ago, we started Rabine of Texas. So we pave all over Texas. And in 2 years, that business has grown to be a nice company, over $20 million in revenues. Revenues don't mean much, right? But what means a lot is our customers there are being served and they're happy as can be. We transferred one of our leaders from the Chicagoland area, Max Broadway, down there. And boy, he's like a fish in water. He's kicking butt in Texas. He's a Texan now and loves it. So that's really cool. So either way, we're blessed that we've got all this stuff going on in business that I can actually consider doing things like running for governor and still have my finger on the pulse of these fun, exciting businesses that we're growing. And we've got a business right now we're looking at buying in Nebraska, and we've also got another startup that we're looking at doing in the solar industry potentially. That's my next meeting today is about that. So, but here, really, Chris, what I wanted to talk about was, as I traveled across the state of Illinois, and I continue to, travel across the country. I was with some of the best economic minds in our country's history last week. I was with Steve Forbes, I was Steve Moore, the president of World Bank, and some amazing economic minds just to learn more about, where we think we're going economically in our country, where I think I can help in our state and our country. I got to tell you, what I've learned over the last couple of years is, we've got a lot of people like myself that are blessed to be born in this great country, to be able to have the opportunity that I've had, that many people have in this great country, to build things. This free market, free enterprise world that we have in our country is like nothing else. And what I realize is, got plenty of people, many that were behind me in my race, that not only loved being business leaders, entrepreneurs, but also love our country so much that they invested money in my campaign, and they do in others. Some never did invest in anybody's campaign; they invested in mine, which is cool. Some continually to try to support people that are behind keeping this free country free. Anyway, so what I also learned was, as I called on many friends, I'm blessed with hundreds of friends that lead businesses, right? And I called on many, what I learned was, as they seemed to align with me, politically or culturally, right? Many didn't have the guts to put a dollar behind me or $1,000 behind me or whatever. And that's okay, right? But it's a little disheartening, because these people are people that have been blessed to build their American dream, and yet they're, whether it's cancel culture or just their ignorance, to know that they better do whatever they can to support causes to keep this country free, or the next generation is going to have the opportunities that I had. And so for me, I think that's a concern of mine. And so as we go forward with DitchDigger CEO, we're going to continually look for great people to interview. But I got to tell you, we're not interviewing anybody that's not a patriot. Anybody that doesn't love this country, I don't care how successful they've been in business, and what, however they serve their market successfully, like our DitchDigger CEO guests do. If they don't love our country, they don't respect this amazing freedom we have, this ability to, in this free enterprise system, this free market system that we have, to gain success like no other country in the world. I don't want them on my podcast, right? So DitchDigger CEO is going to go to this Patriot series where it's going to be patriots that we're going to interview. We're going to interview people that love this country, that have fought for this country. Okay, and I'm going to have some amazing people that have fought for this country, that have served our country militarily. They also have to be leaders then, right? So I want leaders that have served our country, and then I want leaders in business that understand the blessings that we have, that those people have served our country, right, as patriots. So again, I want CEOs, founders, creative people, and entrepreneurs that also embrace the free market and our free country, and they'll do whatever it takes, as I will, to fight for it, so that our next generation has the ability to achieve and create and innovate like like I'm going to continue to do, right? And my kids will continue to do, and I want my grandkids to have the same opportunity. Biggest fear that I have, and people that I respect have, is that the opportunities that they had won't be there for their kids or their grandkids. And I think that's a honorable thing, right? To number one, to have worked hard to achieve whatever, or to fight for our country. But I think it's very honorable to go forward in your life, working your butt off to make sure that the next generation has that same opportunity, right? So our podcast will be really focused on same thing, right? Rags to riches stories, building businesses, great entrepreneurship and entrepreneurs and their stories. But it's also going to be about patriotism and patriots. So we're going to add that, and our first podcast is going to be with an amazing guy, great friend of mine, a board member of mine on our board, who was a general that served our country for 27 years, I think it was. But he also served in the worst times of Vietnam as 6.5 years as a prisoner of war. Again, and after that has been involved in building businesses and guiding businesses, executive on many boards. These are the people that I want to embrace on this podcast, so that our listeners are going to be mentored or talked with by some of the best minds in our country. So that's my goal.
Gary, I do hope that you run for governor again, because I think you bring a very common sense and fresh perspective to the world of politics. What have you learned through your last campaign that you'll do different if you do choose to run again?
As far as doing different, I think I would make sure that if I run again, that I've got more investors behind me, because I actually didn't go out and say, I'm going to run, would you invest in my campaign? I didn't do any of that ahead of time, right? I just jumped in. And so next time I would definitely get out there and make sure that I have investors in my campaign that will understand my capacity to invest in my own campaign, as well as then what their commitment to what they might invest in my campaign, right? So I've got a lot of friends here and across the country that were amazing, that got behind me. But I think I'd have to know that I could raise. I don't think I have to raise 50 million, 55 million like these guys did. I really believe that it's still ridiculous that you have to raise this kind of money. But I think with 15 to 20 million dollars, I could beat somebody that puts 50 million in the race in the future. Just because my name recognition is better. I believe that people, there's great people that got behind me, and in the last month or 2 months of the race, I was doing much better when it came to the debates, when it came to speaking, all these other things, right? So I got stronger as time went on. So if I started out knowing that I had a commitment of more money, I think that was something that I didn't do a very good job of, and so therefore I didn't raise a couple $1 million and then my own money, right? So I think that's important. I think also to understand how you're going to carry your message. Just a few points. I mean, you're from the beginning is important, and I was kind of feeling out exactly the messaging I would carry on for the first year, probably, right? And I don't think it's totally wrong, because the environment changes as you move on over that year and 8 months. Things change. When we started that race, violence was not as big of a deal in Illinois and Chicago. It was definitely an issue, but nothing like it became. Violence in our state and our city has grown so crazy because of bad leadership. So it became a big part of the subject, and I believe there's a pretty good chance Darren Bailey could win, and nobody believed that there's a chance of him winning. Okay, and there's a good chance he can win. I'm praying that he wins, right? Some people say, why do you pray that he win, right? Because if he wins, then you won't have a chance to run next time, right? And I'm like, that's not the goal. The goal is not for Gary Rabine to run for governor. The goal is for Illinois to be a great state and our country to be a great country. And if Darren could win, I'll help Darren in any way, and I'll help him with great people in economics and safety and a lot of other things, right? But either way, the goal is for Darren to knock this socialist Democrat out so that we can move on with the state and strive to be a great state again. And I believe that any strong conservative will have that goal, as Darren will. So my thing is, the messaging initially was economy, which I'm very strong at, bringing businesses back to Illinois, which I understand how to do that. It was property taxes. Our property taxes are now the highest in America. They weren't the highest when I started. They were like second highest when I started my race. Now they're the highest. Okay. All right. So my thing is, simple economics says if you compete with property taxes, your property values will grow, and people will want to live in your state if you're competitive with property taxes. I also know that if the regulations in your state are the highest and the worst, businesses do not want to be there, and the business values will continue to depreciate if your regulatory environment is the highest. And that's what we have in Illinois today. And when I started the race, we weren't the highest. We were getting there. Now we're the highest. We got the biggest cost of business, small and large, of any state in the country. And so I want Darren to win, and I want to help him work on those things and put great minds in front of Darren, because that's where my strength is. But again, if I ran again and if something happened and Darren didn't win, and again, the odds are against Darren. I'm not telling you the odds are for Darren. The odds are against him. But I believe the odds are way higher right now than anybody believed they'd be, because this governor is such a bad governor. He's an arrogant son of a gun. He's done nothing to curb the violence we have in our state. He's actually going to accelerate the violence with a new bill that passed last year. He's done nothing to help the economic side of things. He's actually accelerated the bad economic policy, and our property taxes are going to go through the roof as well. They're already through the roof. Okay, they're going to go even higher if he continues in office. And businesses are going to bleed out of this state like no state ever before, in my opinion, if we don't get them out. So Darren must win, in my opinion. If he doesn't, boy, we got some big problems in Illinois. So my thing is this: if I ran again, I would run on 3 simple principles, and I would hammer on those. And then as new things come up, as they do daily, because I didn't realize this, Chris. On a daily basis, the news you have to take in, not only in our state but across the country, that questions you're going to be asked on something Biden said or Trump said or whatever, right? There's Supreme Court cases are going on, right, that you're going to be asked about, and how do you feel about this or that? So it's crazy the amount of studying you have to do every morning and every night to understand what your position is going to be the next day, right? And I actually liked it. It was fun, but boy, it was a dusk till dawn type of job, and I didn't sleep a lot. I slept 5 or 6 hours a night, and that was fine. That's enough for me. But boy, in the middle of that, the 18 or 19 hours a day that you're on it, you better be on it. So I thought the challenge was really cool, and I would handle it again a little differently in some ways, like I said, but overall, yeah, I'd have enough money to go up on air, to go up on TV. A lot more, and all that. So yeah, that's kind of, I don't know if that answers your question, but
yeah, no, that's awesome, Gary. It's really inspiring. I'll be watching you, brother. So tell me about what inspired the more patriotic focus for the podcast.
Yeah, well, it inspired me was the lack of. I believe that leaders today and tomorrow need to be in touch with the blessings that we have. And if we appreciate the blessings we have in this country, we'll go forward and lead our businesses and lead our communities appreciative of those, and we'll be better examples and better inspirational examples, hopefully, for our kids and young people in business every day. And I didn't see enough of that when I ran. I didn't see enough people, the successful people that I know as friends, many, that were afraid to invest in my race or others like mine, or just weren't interested in it. So I just felt like their appreciation, some of the people, again, their appreciation for people putting their neck out there isn't there, right? It's just not important to them. And so I felt like there's a lack of care for the future of our country. The country that so many patriots have fought so hard for. And so for me, I believe we can be great patriots without being veterans. I've got, as you know, a lot of veterans in my family. I've never served myself, and if there's anything, I'll look back and say, one thing I didn't do is serve my country in the military, right? I think that's the greatest, when you can serve your country and risk your life to serve your country and fight for your country. That's a big deal, especially when you have a country like ours. So when we as business leaders can't embrace this blessing, I got a problem with that. And so that's why I want to focus on people that are patriots, that love our country in the future, to be on my podcast. Does it make sense?
Yeah, makes great sense. And you have some really exciting guests that you're looking to bring on. Major General Borling to be one.
Yeah, he's an amazing inspiration. He was, I knew him a little bit before I ran. Friend of mine, a couple of friends of mine are good friends of his, and then he actually wanted to meet me because he heard my story and wanted to be part of helping me in my race. And boy, he was amazing. I mean, he was anywhere I wanted him to speak or say the Pledge of Allegiance, or he was there to tell his story or whatever, and tell people why he was behind me and why I love my race and why I love the culture of the culture of economics and freedom that I was fighting for. So he was awesome. Also, I don't know if Chris, as I spoke about before, I was one of the founders in Job Creators Network, and I'll probably get our CEO on here at one point because he's fighting again a great battle. But our CEO and I, about a little over a year ago, chose to go after Biden on the vaccine mandate. So I don't know if you followed this at all, but the Biden administration and OSHA were putting a mandate in place that every business like mine, or every business over 100 employees, they're going to start at, right, would have to demand that every employee get vaccinated. And if they didn't get vaccinated, the business needed to fire those employees. Okay, well, I know labor law well enough. I've been around the block in my business, and that would never be acceptable ever in the history of our labor laws, right? In our country, a business could never have the ability to fire somebody because they don't do something that the business wants them to do medically or against their religion or against their health. And so I knew this was wrong. I partnered with our CEO of Job Creators Network, Alfredo Ortiz, and we filed a lawsuit October of last year. And everybody said, "You're crazy, Rabine. Why would you do this? Is this for politics?" Right? Because I was in the middle of my race. Other people say, "Why would you do this? You're busy in this race. Why would you spend the time to file a lawsuit against the president of the country?" Right? I did because I knew it was the right thing to do. I knew that this was totally wrong and unethical, immoral, in my opinion, and illegal by all standards of labor law in the past that I'd seen. So sure enough, we actually won at a lower court, at a lower court, and then we lost at a circuit court this case. We appealed within minutes, within 40 minutes, 50 minutes, we appealed that loss, and the Supreme Court took on this case. They actually accepted to take this case on to the Supreme Court when we appealed it. So Kavanaugh was the judge that had to look at this and accept it or not, and he did. So it was heard in front of the Supreme Court at the end of last year. And January 14th of this year, we won the lawsuit against Biden and OSHA. This lawsuit was critical because think about this. Our supply chain was so messed up. Think about how bad it was. Even still now, our supply chain is still messed up from the COVID shutdowns, lockdowns, okay? But think of how bad it would have been. This lawsuit we were in represented 85 working Americans, 85 million working Americans, okay? Okay, the surveys that we saw showed that 15 to 20% of employees, working class people, would not take the vaccine, and therefore they would leave those jobs. Okay, so think about that. Whether it would have been 12, 13 million or 20 million, I guess 20% would be 16, 17 million. Let's say 13 to 16 million people would not have been would have left their jobs. Okay, if we didn't win that lawsuit, January 14th, we won it. One of the biggest lawsuits for freedom ever. It was so fun to be the first plaintiff on this thing. We got 5 other CEOs to help me fund it, that were plaintiffs along with me. But it was so cool to be part of a game-changing lawsuit that the Supreme Court found us to be right. 85 million working Americans did not have to take the vaccine if they didn't want to, right? And believe me, I have no problem with people wanting to take a vaccine if they want to, right? I just know that it's wrong to demand that as an employer or a country, right? A leader in government, a leader in business is total bullshit that we should ever think that that's okay ever again. And by the way, it's totally, in my opinion, totally wrong that the government has continued to go on doing this in our healthcare system, in our military. And I think you're going to find, and you're finding some of this already, that many governments are going to get sued and they're going to lose. Many large organizations are going to get sued and they're going to lose, and they're going to have to hire these people back, pay them for back wages, or settle with them, because it was totally wrong in what any of these people did to think this was okay. So again, I don't know if you know about that, but again, this is what I want to do the rest of my life. I want to do everything I can to know that in the end, if someday when I'm seeing the end is near, I want to know that I did everything possible to avoid a country that is not free, a country that I've been blessed to be part of. For me to know someday that my grandkids are safe in a free country instead of a socialist country is my goal, right? And I've got 3 great grandkids. The other thing is my grandkids through this time, my grandkids are now, one was born at that time I ran. So we got a 1-year-old grandson, Raphael. He's a blast. He's a little character. I've got a 3-year-old granddaughter now, Sienna. Sienna was, a year or whatever she was last time we were doing this stuff, year and a half, whatever. And then my oldest, Lincoln, is amazing. Lincoln's 6 years old now, 6.5 years old. And he is coolest kid. He's got a great disposition, smart as can be, fun-loving, just a great little guy. So I'm blessed with great kids. My 4 kids are doing great, and they're great people. But then these 3 grandkids are just amazing. They change your life. I never thought I'd want to be I'm not a grandpa, by the way. I should clarify this. I'm Beepa. Lincoln named me Beepa when he first was able to talk, and I'll be Beepa the rest of my life. No grandpa in this in the world of Gary Rabine. And so they all call me Beepa, and they're a blast. So yeah. So again, when I look at the future, I don't care if it's in government or outside government. I'm going to do whatever it takes to fight for our country and fight for freedom and free enterprise. And by the way, at the same time, continue to build and grow businesses, because that's what this country is made for, and that's what I'm built for.
That's awesome, Gary. That's really selfless and awesome, man. That you got that. You were instrumental in protecting 80+ million American workers. That's
well. The cool thing was on the campaign, Chris. So, like it was a day after, 2 days after. I think at Thursday, that 14th, I think was a Thursday, and I think on a Saturday I was at a parade in Rockford, Illinois, and I'm walking and it's freezing. It was really cold, cold parade, damp and cold and all that. I'm like, what am I doing out here, right? But that's kind of was any parades where the weather is bad. Anyway, but I'm walking next to a few people. We're talking, and they're saying, so what are you about, Rabine? And I said, well, I just want to fight for our state and our country, and running for governor is part of that. And I said, we had a great result in a fight we just had on the last week on the 14th. We won this lawsuit against Biden and OSHA. And this guy's listening, a couple people over. He goes, you're kidding me. He goes, oh man, can I hug you? And I said, I guess, And he goes, I actually kept my job. I was going to leave my job because I no way I was going to take the jab. He said, no way I'm going to take the jab. I was going to leave my job. I make a lot of money, and I was going to move out of state. My life would have changed, and I wasn't afraid to change because I was so adamant that I'm not going to take this jab. I'm 35 years old, this and that. Anyway, so it's pretty cool, right? When when that happened, like 2 days later. Well, in that campaign, over and over again, I meet people that came out to listen to me or whatever, that knew that I was part of that case. Now, I got to tell you, one other thing I'll do better, Chris, is I'll market myself better, because I didn't really talk about it that much. I had my wife Cheryl was one that always would be on me about it sounded like she would always tell me because I'm always excited about what's going on in my life. And sometimes she'd say, it sounded like you're kind of bragging when you said this or that. And I said, no, really, I didn't mean to be bragging. I'm just excited, right? And so in my head, still I have that, like if I'm talking about good things going on, I'm bragging too much. And Darren Bailey, the guy that won, talked really strongly, did a great job talking about him fighting to get rid of the mask mandate in our state. And he fought for himself in the Senate. He got it temporarily removed for himself in the Senate, state Senate. And he actually ended up losing in a bigger court. He actually lost that case eventually, but he talked about it all the time. It was like the first thing he talked about. And he was fighting for the mask. That's great. He's fighting for himself. One mask, right? This case I had was for 85 million working Americans, and I won it. I didn't lose it. He lost his, but he did way, way, way better than me at talking about that case, like right away, all the time, right? Eventually I called him out on it the last couple of months, because I realized, I said, Darren, wait a minute. You God bless you that you fought for that mask mandate, against the mask, because you didn't want to wear the mask. That's great. And I didn't really believe in the mask as much as most either. I said, you actually lost that lawsuit in Saginaw County. So you didn't really win, you lost. And it was like for like a year and a year and 5-6 months, I kind of let him go with it, right? Because I thought, hey, it's admirable and all that, right? But even after my case was won, I didn't really talk about it near enough. And so that was not very smart, really, because I need to talk about things that I'm about. And so I again, if I went back, if I did it again, I'd be talking about good things I've been part of, a little more, maybe, hopefully not braggadocious, but kind of braggadocious, right? To talk about things you've done that you've had success with. So again, that's something that, but the same organization, Job Creators Network, of which I was one of the founders of, if you remember, myself and Bernie Marcus was the guy. I was one of the first people he brought in to start Job Creators Network. That organization has grown immensely, like 500,000 business owners now in that organization. But our CEO, Alfredo, the same buddy of mine that we filed that lawsuit together with, is fighting again. This time, the lawsuit is against the student loan bailouts. I don't believe that we should be bailing out student loans. I believe that we're all better when we work hard to pay, pay for our whatever we're responsible for, whether it's our family and putting food on the table or an education. I personally didn't go to college. Not that matters, but I didn't have a loan and if somebody would have said they're paying for my college education, I might have went, right? Maybe. And so I just don't agree that we as taxpayers in our country should be bailing out student loans, and we're not talking about bailing out the poor here, right? It's proven that this is upper middle class more than anything else that we're bailing out in these student loan bailouts at the tune of. So they don't have an exact number between $500 million and $1 billion. No, excuse me, $500 billion. So it's $500 billion to $1 trillion bailout. Okay, that's crazy. We can't afford this as a country, and it's wrong. It's teaching that we don't have to be accountable, in my opinion. So anyway, the same organization that I've been a founder of, Job Creators Network, is now suing Biden. It's been all over the news for that bailout, and we think we can win, and it'd be an amazing feat again to stop what we think is more of a this is not a real leader. This guy that's leading our country, in my opinion, he thinks he's the king, or his puppet masters think they're king, because this isn't something you would do as a leader to make everybody pay for loans for the few. So anyway, it's pretty exciting though, because I think we'll win that one too. So
awesome. I mean, it sounds like you're continuing to stay very politically active, even in between campaigns.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's 3 pillars, right? It's my faith and family pillar, right? Then it's my business pillar, my entrepreneurial pillar, And then lastly, it's my government pillar. How much am I going to engage in government to help make change, right? So that's what I'm focused on right now, and I got to figure out how to balance that. And because I mean, after the race was over, I had maybe a day where I kind of relaxed, and then I was back going after it. And that's who I am. I'm never going to slow down for any reason. But either way, I think that I'm going to have fun in my life. Basically, balance on these three pillars: faith and family, and then my entrepreneurial spirit that I'll never stop. It's never going to end for me until I take my last breath, anyway. And then this focus on fighting for our country in any way I can, supporting people that will fight in government or jumping in myself.
That's awesome, Gary. It's very inspiring. You're walking the talk, living what you preach. So that's I think that alone differentiates you from the majority of other potential candidates.
It's funny, yeah. You say that, and differentiation is the key to success, right? I got to tell you, I know I differentiated myself a lot from the other candidates because there's nobody else that has built much of anything. Darren is the farmer, has been involved in small business, but really never built it a lot. We had another candidate that was really mimicking exactly what I said, that I'm the outsider, business builder, right? He kind of mimicked exactly what I said, and he had very little experience in building anything. He's a nice guy, right? But he just had no experience really building much of anything. And then we had politicians that were running it. So either way, differentiation was not a problem for me. It was marketing that differentiation more than anything else, right? So in the future, we'll figure that out. You can help me with that, Chris.
Absolutely. Awesome, Gary. Well, this is getting me super excited for all the exciting episodes and awesome Patriots you're going to have on. Is there anything else our followers need to know about the podcast and you moving forward?
You know what? Like I said, you're gonna see, just like we've had all along. I mean, if you think about we'll probably get some renewed podcasts for some of the people that we're on, because we've got some of our podcast guests are my good friends or my family, my son, or my partners in my businesses, that since they did their podcast, I mean, they were focused on being world class in their businesses, but they've gone much further than we can imagine. So we had a friend of mine, Bijou, on. Bijou is the founder of Redbox originally, and then Bijou also then founded a company that I was a seed investor in called Halo. Halo is cranking. It's a unicorn. So if you guys know what a unicorn is like it's a startup that goes it's like a top 1/10 1% or top 1/10 of 1%. Unicorns become billion-dollar values eventually, right? And this unicorn is about there already. It's been about 6-7 years, but we had Bijou on. The company was probably worth a few $100 million back then from a startup a few years before. And that company is now, somewhere in the neighborhood of $1 billion valuation and growing. And I helped get a great board member on, Jeb Bush, on the board. And Jeb Bush has helped introduce this technology, this fintech, financial tech business to many banks across the globe to help the value of that business. So Jeb Bush has been a great board member. They're very participatory and engaged. So it's been really cool to see that. All because I got to know him and his son, Jeb Jr., when he ran. And before he ran, I knew Jeb Jr. a little before he ran, actually. So I got to be friends with these guys. They weren't not very supportive of my campaign. That's okay. That we don't align politically on everything, but good people. So that's cool. And then we look at our company's site that I mentioned earlier. Austin was on the podcast talking about this world-class business he was growing in the technology company he was growing. I believe that will be a unicorn as well. I think that business is the enterprise value of that business is pushing $100 million, in my opinion, right now. When I look at the revenues, profits, and the market cap is huge for this business. So again, that business is going to be a unicorn, in my opinion. It'd be really the first unicorn that I've ever been part of starting, right? So Site is an amazing company. Austin will be back on to talk about, so Site, I'll get the CEO of Site on, Dan, again, the guy I told you about that is was a statesman in politics and then went back to business, and look what he's doing after politics, right? Dan's, I think, in his early 50s now, and boy, he is just a godsend to us and our customers, doing a great job growing this business. But I'll get him on. And Austin, of course, went from that company to overseeing all of our companies now. And he's a totally different leader than I am, but in his own way is just kicking butt, doing a great job with his type of leadership. But Austin is also leading in many ways in life as well. So it's really fun to get him on if I can. Nick Matthew was the person we had on one of my companies called Pipeview America, and that company is growing crazy as well. So if you remember Nick Matthew, Pipeview America, he was a leader in one of my companies. Together we spun off into this business, Pipeview America, that's grown incredibly. That company took on some private equities dollars. Nick wanted to take some chips off the table and find a partner, a strategic partner that would invest in us. We did that for the first time. I've never really, taken a partner in private equities before. It's usually been all our own money. So that's pretty exciting because he is like a fish in water when it comes to growing and leading a business as a CEO. That's Nick Matthew. So we'll get him back on. His business has probably quadrupled in value since the last time he was on. And then we've got some others too that I know have grown immensely since the last time we had him on. So we'll maybe do a little recap, as long as, of course, I believe that they are true patriots. And actually, most of the people I've had on definitely are. There's a few maybe I could say, maybe not so much, but either way, we're gonna have some fun. I've got some amazing people on the stump as I was on the trail. I met some great entrepreneurs, some people I said, someday I'm going to get my podcast going and you're coming on. And almost every time they say, yeah, of course I would do that, right? So I've got some amazing guests coming forward, all going to be great patriots, all going to be people that we can all learn from. You, Chris, myself, and all our listeners. All I want is to mentor leadership and mentor leaders in business. And that's what we're going to continue to do the best of. So, all right.
Awesome. Well, I'm super excited to hear more from you and all these awesome guests, Gary. This is great.
I appreciate it, buddy. Also, I got to tell you, I started dating a girl recently. That's also a great story. She's a patriot herself. She's a great. She's strong into politics. She worked for our RNC, the Republican National Committee, out of college. She'd been engaged in. She then worked for the Kemp presidential campaign. So that was pretty cool. She talked to me a little about that. She got great stories of that whole race. That was against Bush #1, if you remember. You don't remember, you weren't born yet, am I saying? But anyway, so she worked in that campaign, and she then worked in business, mortgage banking, and some other stuff. Her husband grew some in the lighting industry. But she's got 3 great adult kids, and we started seeing each other about 4 months ago now, and so I'm having fun with her because she constantly is challenging my thought when it comes to these things you and I are talking about, because she's got that entrepreneurial mentality. Her father was an entrepreneur and a business leader, and so she's her kids are all in business. Her 3 adult kids are all traders in big consulting business, trader in crypto, and then a young man that's a startup guy of his own as he's at college. So really, really cool story she is, and she's going to push me as the people in my life that I care about the most will push me to be the best I can be, right? And so I'm confident that she's got that. So you'll eventually have to meet Julie, but Julie's a lot of fun.
Awesome. Yeah, can't wait to meet her.
Yeah. So things are good. We're blessed.
Awesome. All right. Well, looking forward to it, Gary.
All right, Christopher. Well, thanks for everything.